If you think of your tracking as a strategic resource, it's going to immediately make you more forward-looking and less addicted to the backward-looking measures that you've been relying on consistently because that's the way you've always done it. I think also it is a strategic asset. It's not just a strategic resource. I've never been involved in a political campaign where we were only looking at where we were coming from. We always look at where we needed to go and how to get there. And we do it and did it in real time because we're facing a deadline that's called Election Day in every contest we're in. You know, we've talked about the changing media environment that we're all living with. It's affecting brands, obviously, and it's affecting the political world, as I said before. News spreads at the speed of a tweet, and so we know that this is not going to decelerate. This trend is only going to accelerate, and that's why tracking needs to be as agile as possible. There are just days when you have to get into the field in less than 24 hours, or you won't just fall behind as a brand, but you could fall behind not just in one news cycle, but if you lose that narrative in the first 24 to 48 hours, you may never recover. Now, all of that may be a little less relevant in the corporate world, but there are times when it happens. And when it does, you folks have to be able to move at the speed of a political campaign to make sure that a misstep, a change in market dynamics, some change from a competitor doesn't become a threat to your brand that you're unprepared for, and you know what to do to prevent that from happening beforehand. Campaigns are never static. Creative tracking keeps you ahead of that, and it keeps you ahead of the curve. And I think just asking the same questions over and over again will not likely keep you ahead of where a market is going, where your consumers are going, or where or how or why your brand perceptions are training. It doesn't mean you throw out old questions, but you need to be creative in thinking about what you want to learn every time you go into the field. I have a rule at my company, and I ask them, why are you asking the question this way? And they'll say, well, that's the way we've always asked it. And I say, that's never a good enough answer. It doesn't mean it's the right answer. It doesn't mean it's the wrong answer, but it's just never good enough. If you're asking it the same way you've always asked it, make sure you have a reason to do it. Otherwise, ask a better pet question. You're spending a lot of money on tracking surveys. Get the most out of it every time you go in the field. In the world of marketing today, it's not as rough and tumble as politics, but it is extremely competitive, and it's getting more competitive. Tracking can expose some of your fault lines and help you identify the remedy before a competitor sees it and can capitalize it. And that's why looking ahead is so important. And I think your tracking can keep you aware of your strengths, but also your vulnerabilities that your competition might use against you. Someone is always after the voters you need. You know, right now I'm engaged in the Democratic primary. Obviously, there are 20 candidates. There are plenty of people after the voters you need right now. But to the extent possible, tracking should help make sure you're keeping ahead of them, right? By finding out what connections you can make with them to attract them, to keep them, to solidify that relationship before your competitor gets to them. You know, in marketing today, even your most loyal consumers can switch brands for a variety of reasons. Some of them might be out of your control, but some of them might very well be within your control. And tracking research can help you make sure your loyal users don't become switchers, and your switchers don't become loyal to your competition. I've preached to audiences across the country in my various speaking engagements. No party wins in politics without winning the middle, and that means moderate voters, swing voters. And all voters are not the same, and you have to know what you need to monitor in order to win with each of those key audiences. What I need to do to keep a base voter in a political contest, but at the same time not alienate a swing voter, and vice versa, win a swing voter without alienate a base. In corporate marketing, the same is true for you because it's a lot harder to build more voters or consumers in your category sometimes than it is to grow your business with people who are already engaged in your category. And I think knowing what you need to monitor to win with each of your key audiences you have is critical in the world of marketing today. Also have to monitor what is important today, but remember that what is important today might be different from tomorrow. And what I mean by that is, I know that tracking leans on a lot of traditional questions. I've had companies tell me, I've asked this question again because it's the way we've always asked it. You know, I don't want to be dismissive of tracking metrics. I think you absolutely have to keep tracking certain questions. You know, in politics, we're never going to stop tracking horse race and favorability. But I tell people the horse race is rarely the most important number. Now, it doesn't mean it's not important. It just means it's rarely the most important number. Because what you really need to understand every time you do research is if numbers are changing, why? If not, why not? That's the story beneath the data that becomes more valuable, not just for you as researchers and marketers, but ultimately for your brands themselves.